Welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast with your host, Janos Gyorke. You have the power to overcome challenges and fears. Let my voice and the voice of many others show you how to transform these challenges into opportunities. To learn more about future podcasts and read episode show notes, check out my website at www.thepowerofyourvoice.com.
Welcome to the Power of Your Voice podcast. This is episode 37. Something you may not know about me is that in the mid-2000s, I was a professional model for almost 7 years. I had 4 modeling contracts with the biggest agencies in the world and was blessed with an incredible opportunity to travel. After a few people mentioned about creating an episode about it, I decided, it was time, so here we are. If you are thinking about getting into modeling, are currently modeling, or have friends or family members who are interested, well, I'm going to cover some very, very important things that you will want to know. So, some models, they use their birth name. Some use a name in another language. Others, they just create an alias because, it sounds more cool or maybe it sounds more professional. Well, I'm mostly Hungarian. My last name is Hungarian, so I chose to use the name János, which means John in the native Hungarian language, Magyar. There are many different types of modeling. So what you have is this: fashion, runway, commercial. So commercial, those are the ones that basically the opposite of high-end fashion modeling. These are the ones that would usually do catalog work. You have fitness, parts, and promotional model. So if you want to be a fashion or runway model, usually I like to intertwine these two together. Women, generally, they're supposed to be 5'9" to about 5'11". Males usually should always be 5'11" to 6'2". Now, I know people sometimes say, well, Kate Moss, she's only 5'7". And sometimes, there's an exception to that, but let me be very clear, it's extremely rare. And also don't forget when Kate Moss started too. Commercial models, they can usually be around 5'6" to 5'11", so they don't have to be as tall. And then for men, usually it's 5'9" to 6'2". The most important thing to know is if you're a commercial model, you have to fit in sample sizes. So for example, I wear a suit, and when I wear a suit, I'm a 31 long. Now my experience as being a model is a lot of times when I would go to jobs, the suits would be like in my size, so it was literally fit me perfectly. Now if you don't fit in these sample sizes, well, unfortunately, these clients are not going to be able to work with you. And also, just something I think is very important to say is because, a lot of people, at least my experience has been, people, they want to be a high-end fashion model, they want to be in all these magazines and all that kind of stuff. But to be completely honest, commercial work is where the money is, and the majority of models that do commercial work, those are the ones that make really good money. So, for example, if you book a major commercial campaign for a big client, you could easily make 5 figures. As for fitness models, honestly, all I really know is you definitely have to be in top shape. So heights, all that kind of stuff, honestly, I don't really know. What I would highly recommend you do is to look at fitness magazines. Go to like a local bookstore just to get a bit better idea of what the agencies are looking for. Because usually what I would tell people is if you look at the magazines, you'll get a really good idea what they're looking for. So that's definitely important. Now, another type of modeling, which I actually did a lot of, is promotional modeling. So this can be a lot of fun. Usually, they don't really have height requirements unless they're looking for a certain thing. Like, say, for example, maybe for a basketball game, they're looking for a mascot, and they're looking for somebody that can fit in the mascot uniform kind of thing. You might have to be 6 foot or whatever the requirement is. For that, they're going to ask for a certain requirement, but usually they don't. And based on my experience, a lot of the jobs, there's sometimes weddings. Like I did one, I dressed as like a royal guard at some big wedding. I had a lot of fun too. Sometimes you might do car shows. Sometimes it could be bartending. Might be handing out free stuff at a big convention. And really the list goes on. There's just so many different things you could do. Now these jobs, honestly, they usually pay about $15 to $25 an hour. Sometimes I see them posted, maybe there's only like 3-4 hours, so they're not really long. Sometimes it could be an entire day, which is really good, at least especially when you're getting your start out as a model. Now I've seen some of them, usually they're like the conventions, they might pay you like $200 to $300 a day, which honestly I think that's pretty good, especially considering what you're doing. And I really think these are especially good if you're a college student. Now when it comes to agencies, like there are a lot of different types of agencies. Now my experience is really honestly only really with fashion. So those are the ones I'm really going to talk about. Now, when I first started out, I was completely clueless. I made a lot of mistakes. If you were starting off in the modeling industry, you probably will want to work with an agency because the majority of clients only work exclusively with top agencies. Now, this means if you do not have an agency, you would never know about certain jobs that are be offered. So, for example, a big client is looking for a certain type of model. Now, they're only going to probably go to, say, top 3 agencies. So you would not know about those jobs unless you were with one of those 3 agencies. So that's usually how it works. So that's very, very important to know. Now, when you're thinking about getting to an agency, for anyone who's listened to this, if you have any doubts about yourself, thinking, oh, those top agencies, they're probably going to say no to me. Honestly, the worst thing they can say to you is no. Of course, what's the best thing they could say to you? We love you, absolutely, we want you. So honestly, learn to get rejected because it's not anything personal. Most good agencies, they only bring on talent who they know they will be able to get them work. I mean, just think about it. Why would an agency want to get a bunch of people they really can't get work? So if you get with agency, it's probably because they like your look, which is absolutely what you want, you know. I strongly recommend that you personally visit the biggest agencies in your city and visit them during open call casting. So what exactly is that? So agencies, they have a certain time of the day, of the week, where new models can come in and visit their booking agents to see if you're a right fit. So sometimes what people would do, or at least my experience is probably back in the days, maybe 10, 15 years ago, what people would do is they would take a bunch of pictures. They usually would be Polaroids, if you remember what those are. It was the instant pictures. And you would send those into agency. Agency would probably, after a week, they would give you a call. So a lot of that has changed. So now, as I was saying, now let's say there's one agency in your city. Maybe every Monday from 2 to 4, that's when they have their open call. So from 2 to 4 on a Monday, you would show up, you go to the agency, and there might be 10, 15, maybe 20 models. So when you go, you want to dress your best. So if you're a guy, wear a suit, look like you are GQ, you are in a magazine. That's what they want to see. Same thing if you're a woman, or say a young lady. You want to wear high heels. You want to look great. That's very, very important. Appearances, especially when it comes to modeling, you know, because that's the thing. When you go to agency, they want to look at you like, wow, okay, I can see this person in the magazine. I can see them walking down the runway. I can see them in this. That's very, very, very important. Now, if you get signed with the agency, usually the contracts, they're usually for about 2 years. All the big agencies, it's always 2 years. Now, some models, they have one agency, some have more. There's no issue with that, you know, that's very typical. Now, some models, they get what you call a mother agency. Now, what a mother agency does is they reach out to other agencies to get you signed, and basically everything goes through them. Now, if your mother agency is, say, in Miami, and an agency you are with in New York has a job, they call your mother agency, they get you booked, and you're set. Your agency in New York would not be able to directly book you without permission of your mother agency. So, for example, you have a mother agency in Atlanta, you have an agency that you're working with in New York. Well, to be honest, you're going to get more work in New York than you are in Atlanta. Your agency in New York is going to call your mother agency in Atlanta and say, hey, we got you a job here. We need you to fly up. Your mother agency is going to call you, let you know about what's going on with the agency in New York, get everything ready, and you fly out to New York for the job, however that might look like. Now, some people, they love mother agencies. Personally, I had 2 experiences that were not good. Keep in mind, when you book a job through the agency, they will always take a 20% cut. So, for example, I was talking about the agency that's in New York. If that is the place that booked you that job, they're going to get 20% cut. That's the industry standard. Then your mother agency, they would take usually about 10 to 15% or more. So you're actually getting more money taken out of your paycheck from a job that you book. So you can kind of see where I'm going. Now, everyone, they have a different experience. Doesn't mean that your experience is going to be the same. Now, in my first experience, I got with the mother agency. I live in Atlanta. So the agency I got with was in Canada. I found them online. And honestly, they looked like a really good agency. They had really good models, really good talent. But the owner, to be honest, he did absolutely nothing. Now, I always knew I had no idea what the heck I was doing. So I was fortunate I was able to get out of that contract. I left. Then I went to a mother agency that I found here in Atlanta. Once again, I really didn't know too much about what I was doing. If I should get a mother agency, I just didn't know. I didn't really get a lot of activity, but eventually they were able to get me a contract with Boss Models in New York, which Boss Models was founded in 1988 by the British photographer David Bossman. Amazing guy who during the 1990s, his agency launched a cruise of many male supermodels. So at that time, like literally, his models were like the biggest models in the entire industry. So like he basically invented the male supermodel. So it was an amazing opportunity. I got to work with David Bossman. Absolutely loved him. He passed away, about several years ago. Now, going back into mother agencies. So the challenge that happens with mother agencies is that basically they own you and you cannot sign any contract anywhere in your country. So if you have a great mother agency and they get you with top agencies and you work, then everything is great. However, if your comp cards sit on the shelf, which is the pictures that they put together for you. So for example, you have the face, the headshot in the front, and then in the back it might have like maybe 2, 3, 4 pictures, maybe different jobs you had that's going to be in the back. And I'll go a little bit into that later. But yeah, basically you're stuck and you have no control over your career. Personally, I recommend to get signed with a top agency in the biggest market. So, for example, Miami, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and for international work as well, Paris, London, Milan, Shanghai, Beijing, Singapore, and Tokyo. And of course, there's a lot more as well. Now, I'd highly recommend, if possible, to personally visit the agency. I've mentioned this before. As a model, I believe it's important that whoever is going to represent you, that they are excited and absolutely love and adore you. An agent who's not excited about you probably will not keep you busy. This is very, very important. When you sign a contract, you will sign for exclusive areas. So, for example, if you book let me go back. If you get a contract with a big agency in New York, one of the, say, top 5 agencies there, you're going to sign exclusively. So that means that you will not be able to sign with any other agency in that particular market. Now, going back into mother agencies, if you would sign a contract with a mother agency, basically, that means that they have complete control over you. For example, if you were signed in the United States, you give over all your control over to them. So you would not be able to sign with anybody unless you ask them, hey, there's an agency I'm thinking about signing in LA or New York or Miami, whatever. Anything that you do, you have to ask them. If they say no, well, unfortunately, there's nothing that you can do. This is why personally, when I was modeling, working with a top agency in one market is a good thing for me personally. Now, working with a mother agency and having somebody else have complete control and you're not really able to be in control of your own career, I wasn't a big fan, and that's why I'm like, you know what, this is just not for me. But my experience is going to be different for you. It may not be, but that's something that honestly you just have to pick and decide for yourself. When I was modeling, I had an agency in Atlanta, New York, Miami, Los Angeles, and Shanghai as well. So they always had work. They could directly book me for it, and I didn't have to go through a mother agency. Now, the other thing that I wanted to say, find jobs that are outside of those cities, I didn't have to give anybody any percentage of it. So that was very, very nice. Now, I think it's important to realize this. Just because you are signed to a top agency, it does not mean you will get work. It does not guarantee that. Some models are always booked, while others barely get any jobs. I mean, this is just me being completely 100% honest with you. Now, remember, this could be due to several reasons. Maybe the clients are just looking for a particular look and, you're just not ready, or you just don't have that look for that market. And that's why it's good to get with a good agency, because they'll be honest with you. You know what? We love you. You look great. However, in this particular city, you just won't book a lot of jobs. But hey, maybe if you go over here, you look great for that city. So that's very important. And, just make sure you get honest, good feedback from people. Now, maybe your booker is only interested in booking their other top models. This sometimes happens. Let me just be completely honest with you. This has been my experience, or I've talking to other models, I've heard stories about this as well. So that does happen, but there are always different reasons for that. There are models who do not have agencies and do very well for themselves. So I want to make that very clear. You don't always have to get with agency. Now, the reason why I believe that many of these models do well, and some of them who I've spoken with, they do well because they're really good at hustling, marketing themselves. They really, really put themselves out there. They go to a lot of events. Now, at the end of the day, it's very important to realize this. No one particular person is going to build your career for you except for you. So you really have to put yourself out there, even when you're with a top agency. Like, you have to visit there, you have to go there. If you, for example, if you are going to New York for a couple weeks or something. Like, when I was in New York, I was with Boss Models. When I was there for several months at a time. I would go to the agency like almost every single day. Hey, how's it going? Hey, what's going on? What do you have for me? What can I go to? Do you have any go-sees? Do you have any particular clients that are looking for someone that looks for, someone that's looking for me, or whatever it might be. But always make sure that you reach out to your agency, because that's the thing. If they have 200 models and they don't really know you because you don't stop in there, hey, let's be clear. If they have models who are constantly checking in with them, those ones are probably going to be getting the jobs, which is why it's so incredibly important, and I cannot stress this enough as well. Be a good person. Be respectful. Be kind to others. Be on time for jobs. If you book a job, make sure you show up on time. No excuses. Get there ahead of time. Find out where it is. And especially when I started modeling, you didn't have Uber and Lyft and these bikes and scooters and stuff that you could rent. Now, I mean, really, there's no excuse. Make it easy for people to work with you, and make sure you have fun. Like, you gotta have fun. If you have an ego, if you have some big massive ego, trust me, lose it, because it will not serve you well in this industry. There is a 6 degrees of separation, or I probably would say less in this industry. If you are known for being hard to work with, everyone will know about it, and no one will want to work with you. When I modeled, I had such a blast. I really, really enjoyed hanging out with such incredible, cool people. Got invited to like all these amazing parties. I really, really loved it. I didn't waste my time gossiping and just, talking bad about people. Yeah, I just didn't have time for that. And you know what? It's totally unprofessional. Now, if you go into a job, if you go work with a photographer, if you work with a designer, makeup artist, or whatever, and this is something that was set up through agency, you need to take note, write down when it happened, the time, all that kind of stuff, where it happened, And make sure you tell your booker at your agency because they care. They want to know. I mean, that's very, very important. Don't just pretend nothing happened. If something happened and you really don't think it should have, make sure you say something. That's very important. I wanted to also point this out because I think this is very important and something you may want to consider if you live in Canada, Europe, Australia, South America, and especially the United States. I started modeling in my mid-20s. If I could have done things differently and listened carefully, I would have started off in Asia. There are many, many good agencies in Asia where you can get a 3-month contract, sometimes longer, but usually and typically they're 3 months. You get plenty of work. You may or may not make a lot of money, but what you will get a lot of is experience and what we call in the industry is tear sheets. Tear sheets is basically printed work that was published in a magazine or catalog, and the reason why they call it tear sheet is because you can tear it out. So these are actual jobs that you completed, real jobs. They look beautiful when you put them in your modeling book. Many models, they build their modeling books in the Asian markets, and when they come back to the United States to work in large markets with a book full of these beautiful tear sheets, and when they go and they meet these clients, they love it because they know that the model has experience and they have a book to actually prove it. Now, to be honest, if I could go back to when I first started modeling, the first thing I would have done is I would have gone to Asia. But you know what? I didn't know what the heck I was doing, and this is why I'm sharing this information with you. I actually did the total opposite. I went towards the end of my career. I mean, it's not really, I mean, I could probably always go back, but you know, you get what I'm saying. Now, I am certain it cost me jobs and the potential of money because of it. Regardless, I absolutely loved working in the Asian market, and I had a blast. I really, really loved it. Now, one thing I also wanted to mention too, because sometimes people are wondering, well, I'm young. Maybe I'm 18, 19, 20 years old. Maybe I'm living with my parents. Oh my gosh, this is like literally the best because you don't have any bills if you're living with your mom and dad, or you probably don't. So if you have an apartment, you have a house, and you have all these bills, you know, it can be challenging to leave for 3 months because you're still going to have bills to pay. Now, if you're living with your parents or you're living with friends or whatever that might be, you get a 3-month contract, you fly over to Asia or wherever. I mean, it could even be Europe, it could be like Turkey or something, and you fly out there. The way it usually works is this: the agency, they'll get you a visa, or you know, they'll give you all the information to get the visa, because if you go to Singapore, you go to China, wherever, more than likely you're going to need a visa to go out there. So you get the visa, and then they're going to book you the flight. They book everything for you. You go there. They're going to put you up in what they call a model hotel, or I should say model apartment. Yes, not a hotel, a model apartment. You'll stay there for 3 months, typically. And what they'll do is they'll take out the money that you make from all your jobs. So you book a bunch of jobs. They'll take out money out of that. So usually the way it works is, say you get paid 80%. The agency gets 20% of your pay. Well, out of the 80%, they're going to take out money that they paid for you to fly there and when you leave. Then for all the food and for all, you know, your taxis and whatever transportation you have, all that kind of stuff. So, for example, when I went to Shanghai for 3 months back during the Beijing Olympics, when I was there, I flew out there. First month, because of the Olympics, I honestly didn't really book any jobs because there was just so much. We just weren't very busy. The last 2 months, I was very, very busy. But because of the jobs I was getting, all that kind of stuff, I really didn't make any money. So the beautiful thing is this, like, I got a lot of good work. I got really good tear sheets, all that kind of stuff, which was wonderful. But because I wasn't making a lot of money for the high-paying jobs, because unfortunately, if you go to, like, say, Shanghai or Beijing, they don't really book, I'm sorry, let me say this again. They don't pay you a lot of money when you do runway, when you do campaigns, when you do catalogs, which is kind of the total opposite as it is here in the United States. But you get really good tear sheets that you can put in your book. So honestly, I think that's more important long term if you want to stay work in the industry, you want really good work that you can present to people. So when I came back to the United States, even though I didn't make any money, I didn't own the agency. So basically the way I look is this: I went to Shanghai, I went to all these different cities in China, basically for 3 months. I had a place to live, I had food, I had clothes, I had transportation, I had all that, and I didn't have to pay anything. Now I was put in this position where basically I got to go there for free, and I got to travel and really enjoyed myself. So that's the way to look at it as well. You may make money, you may not, but the most important thing is if you want to come back to wherever you live in your country and you want to get work, you need to go to Asia or go to some of these countries in Europe where you can book jobs, where you will get tear sheets that you can put in your book, so you will potentially be able to book bigger jobs in your country. And that's very, very important to know. If you truly love the fashion industry, my experience is that models, usually they stay in some capacity. Sometimes they become a photographer, designers, stylists, even producers, or they pick some kind of niche to go into. Now for models, because of the hours, the requirements of going to these casting calls, basically a casting call is there's a client, they're looking for somebody who has no hair, they're 6'1", they're like medium build, there's a certain look that they're looking for. So the agencies, they will send any model that they have that kind of fits that kind of look. And then there might be 5, there could be 10, there could literally be 200, depending on how big the job is, models that go to that casting. And then the people at that casting, they'll look through your book, they'll look at you, maybe they'll take a couple pictures, however that might be. But sometimes the models, they might go into that kind of thing. I mean, it really, really all depends. Now, the thing is, usually models that work in restaurants, they might be a server, they might be a bartender, they might do promotional modeling for special events, which is definitely something that I did a lot of as well to earn extra income on the side. So if you're serious about becoming a model, you need one thing that's, let me really make sure you hear this. You need to invest with a photographer who shoots top quality images that you can use in your book. This is very important, especially when you first start out and you don't have any pictures, or you maybe have a couple. You really need top quality pictures that basically looks like it came from a magazine. That's very, very important, because when you're going to these castings and the people are looking at your book, they can say, okay, wow, this person looks really good in a suit, or they look really good in whatever it might be. But they can actually look at you and picture you in their campaign or whatever it might be that they're going to book you for. It could be a calendar, it could really be anything. It's very important that you get a really good photographer. Now, sometimes if you're lucky, if you're pretty fortunate, sometimes you can find really good photographers online who will book you for what they call a TFP, time for print, and they'll book you for free because maybe you have a special look that they're really looking for and they don't have that in their book, or they're just building their book. Maybe it's somebody who they're about to graduate from college, they're building a portfolio and they like the way you look. That would be a really good instance to get into. Now, however, it's important to keep this in mind. In this industry, the phrase "you are only as good as your worst picture," this is often said, and this is why this is said. So the truth is, when you meet with a client, they look at your book. If they see a picture that doesn't really represent you well, they might get worried that, hey, if I book this model for a job, it's possible I might get a picture of this quality, and that's not exactly what you want. So yes, it's very important to get with a good photographer that can really capture you very, very well and really make you look your best. If you're serious about modeling, please make sure you treat it as a business and you contact the best agencies in your city and ask them what photographers they recommend to test with. So agencies, they know who are the best photographers who are visiting currently in the town, or whoever is working there locally. My experience is that they only recommend photographers who they really respect and they know that they constantly produce good quality pictures. Very, very, very important. Now, I could go on. There's probably a lot of other things I could talk about, but honestly, it's getting late. So if you have any questions, please, please, please feel free to reach out to me. Now, if you use Instagram, you can send me a DM. My username is Voice Podcast. Or, of course, you can always go to thepowerofyourvoice.com. Go to the website, go to the contact, and reach out to me. I don't know everything. There's a lot of stuff to know, but I've been in the industry long enough. I know enough people. If I don't know the answer, I can probably find it out for you. I would do my very, very best, and thanks again for listening. Johnny here. Thank you for listening to the Power of Your Voice podcast. I'd love to get your feedback on this episode and how it impacted you. If someone in your life could benefit from this episode, share it with them. Check out thepowerofyourvoice.com to read show notes, leave a comment on the blog page, and to stay updated on all future episodes, subscribe to this podcast and leave a 5-star review. Thank you for your love and support.